Another mini Big Bun Game Club. I am gonna talk about Soul Hackers 2. I've played that game so much I ended up beating it. Uh After playing it more and more and discussing it with Stormlit Aqua in the last video in the comments, shouts out, I kind of found myself enjoying the gameplay a lot more, especially the combat. I still prefer the press turn system in SMT. I still think that is a way better system, but I found myself kind of warming up to Soul Hackers 2's combat a lot more. Uh, I still feel there is something missing with Sabbaths. I feel like that it doesn't fully utilize that system to its fullest. I started to enjoy the little perks that you could do with Sabbaths, like you could get more Sabbath skills that can either give you more money, more items. It can also give you like buffs and debuffs for the enemies, etc. And that I kind of like, but what I started to find out that there were demon skills where you can grant a party member a bonus stack pretty much. So if I give it to Arrow and he lands fire on an enemy that's weak to fire, he'll not only get like 2 since he already has that buff through his soul matrix, he'll get 3 this time around because I gave him that stack buff. So I do like that side of it where you can really utilize the stacks to your advantage if you do it in a smart way. And Storm kind of explained it to me in the comments. Sorry, I'm not going to say word for word here, but he mentions in the comments that it becomes more of a decision of like, are you going to spend your turn building a stack, or are you going to just be on defense or or be a healer during that or whatever? Like, what are you going to do as the stack starts up? And you can really start being more strategic with it. And I guess I wasn't thinking of it like that. I was more thinking of it like, well, yeah, you're gonna once you start using it, you either want to just pile as much um damage as you can, and or make a big stack as you can, etc. Like you're either gonna do that. Like what else is there really to think about? But when it becomes a discussion, like you could use the Sabbath to either wipe out like a few enemies in a party, like it becomes that kind of decision making. And I think it's much more interesting once you start seeing these skills that demons have that can grant buffs for stacks. I do kind of think that this stuff should have been a little bit earlier in the game because I feel like I might be wrong here, but if I remember correctly, I think I started seeing these that stack buff uh in the demon skills like near the end of the game, and I feel that's way too late to have that. I feel like that should have been way earlier in the game because by the time you get that, you're like, wow, Sabbaths are pretty cool. Then you're at the end of the game. It's like, oh, okay. So I kind of feel that that should have been introduced a little bit earlier, but you do get the advantage of giving your party members like added stacks through their soul matrix. So I guess it balances out that way. It's still a much more solid system than what I initially felt about it in the beginning. The dungeons haven't really changed when I was playing it last. I think the only dungeon I really despised was the municipal tower, namely the sea level. That dungeon is the most SMT dungeon you could really get. Like a lot of people bring up the Soul Matrix's third and fourth floor where they have these teleporters. Mostly the fourth floor of the Soul Matrix, in my opinion, is the most SMT stuff because you get normal teleports and you get one-way teleports and that. And I get that's annoying. So whatever. I kind of for some reason I had mad luck going through the Soul Matrix on the fourth floor. Everyone except for Saizo, I was able to find their to the boss gate immediately. It was really easy for me for some reason. I don't know why. But Saizo was the only one that was giving me trouble. Uh, but the sea level was just awful because it highlights a key issue that I didn't think about when I was playing it before because it seemed like a minor inconvenience when I was playing it in the past, but when I was at the sea level, it became a problem. You can't ever, as far as I understand, maybe I'm a dum dum and didn't notice this, but you can't ever pause the game and look at the map like at all. And I don't know why they didn't want you to do that because it's kind of rough when you're doing a dungeon. You have enemies that can teleport at any moment, and you're trying to look at the map and you're trying to figure it out. Like sometimes, like sometimes when I look at a map, it takes me a while, especially in that kind of level where you're doing all these teleports and you can't really see where. Like sometimes I might forget what teleport I just came from, etc. So it was really annoying going through that sea level where it's like I can't look at the map, I can't pause the game or anything. And I was debating getting a piece of paper and drawing the map and just marking where I was going through that. And I didn't do it because I just kind of stuck with it and barreled my way through where I needed to go. But it is just a headache. That dungeon is not my favorite, but it leads to my favorite of all time in that game, where it's the like I think they call it has the dumbest name. I'll be honest, it's a really stupid name. I think they just call it Bones. You couldn't come up with a better name, but that is one of my favorite dungeons because of just the atmosphere. It reminds me of the final area in Persona 5 when you're going up that rib stairway to Yabba Dabba Doo, whatever, the Holy Grail dude. That was kind of cool in Persona 5. This is a way better version of that. You have like this creepy like setting. It's just odd, and you have like fucking like fetuses surrounding you, and it's just like this is so weird and cool and like fucking demonic, and I fucking was eating it up. I love that whole area. The music was so good. Like if there's one thing that this game has sold me on is the soundtrack so fast. Like the music is so good. I love the music. But yeah, that dungeon was really solid and straightforward. I really liked it, especially the gimmick with the keys. I'll get into the keys again a little bit in the story segment, but to kind of discuss that, depending on how you answer some questions, you'll get either the sunset key or the moonrise key, or is it the moonset, whatever. I got the moon. I got the no sunlight and no sunlight moonlight. That's what it is. Oh my god. I got the Moonlight keys because I was under the impression that that's how you get the true ending. Shouts out, but uh, yeah, that dungeon is still my favorite dungeon in that game so far. There was stuff I liked. I did like going through like buildings in some areas and all that. It was interesting, and there was some redundancy, like the subway terminals could get kind of rough, but it's not awful. Uh, so I will say the dungeons have not disappointed me at all. It's not as bad as like doing the fucking mirror world in SMT3. Don't get me started on that. But uh the dungeons are solid. The combat I grew to like. I think I didn't really understand the strategic advantage you could get with Sabbaths, and I do like that there was that at play there. The demon fusions I really started to like more and more, especially you could still like grow your demon skill list a little bit, but I still will hold on to my belief that whoever decided, because this is a thing in SMT5, to give you a very limited skill window, and then you have to like expand it later on. That is terrible. I'll stand by that regardless. That did not change because it for the longest time in the very early part of the game, all the way to like I want to say halfway. I want to say halfway, but maybe a little less than that. But you really start getting those skills way later when you start to expand your skill tree, and it's like, come on. So I still did not like that at all. But the demon fusions were fun. I didn't really experiment as much as I kind of wanted to because I kind of lost my patience with it because I I the game kind of made me complacent with the demons I had because every demon I wanted to fuse, I could not give him the elements I wanted. Like, okay, Melody is a great fire type. I want her to have all these fire demons. And I couldn't find a good one until like near the end of the game. Like by the end of the game, I was finally able to fuse. I think the name was Azura. I think that was a really good demon. That gave her a lot of mileage. Where it's like, okay, it has all these cool skills. It's a really good demon for her. So it's like, I mean, till that point to get that. And I know like Azure is probably like a late game demon for sure because of his stats and all that, which I understand. But before then, it's like I was really scraping by with whatever demon I was getting for her. It's like, yeah, like I'm at the part of the game where you really should be getting like Agadine and the Deans pretty much. You're not gonna go for the does anymore. I mean you're past that, okay, boy. You want the Deans, obviously. So when I'm fusing demons and they're not giving me Deans, it's like, why? And it's just kind of like the only way I could have done it is if I fuse other demons. And it's like, yeah, but if I do that, I won't have demons for this person. Like I would have to fuse away a demon that Arrow had, for example, and that demon was really good for Arrow. Like I could not get rid of it. It was too good to get rid of, and I didn't really want to spend money on getting the this to resummon it because I wanted to save the money for other stuff, like other demons I wanted to fuse in the special fusion area. And it was just kind of rough at that point. Uh, I did get around it eventually, but it was just a pain because by the time I got near the end of the game, I decided to make a mad dash to get Black Frost. I had to get Black Frost, obviously. And when I finally got him, I was like, yeah, this is a great demon for Arrow. I really wish I had this demon like way earlier. The game does give you a lot of good opportunities to customize your party in a very interesting way, but it doesn't. I don't think it goes all the way, and it's the same criticism I had for Yakuza Like a Dragon, where you could change your party's class at any time in the game, but when you get to the final boss, the game pretty much tells you you're gonna want to go back to that other class that you didn't want to do, and I didn't really like that, and Soul Hackers 2 kind of does that where I wanted Melody to be a healer because she was getting a lot of good healing skills for every demon I was getting for her. And it's like, yeah, she's not gonna ever advance her healing skill, and it's like, why? Like the ones that were getting all the healing stuff was like Saizo and Arrow, and Saizo kind of I forced him to be a healer. That's how it felt, to be honest. When I was getting through that, I was like, well, since Melody's not getting it, and I don't think I feel like I could have done for Ringo, but I never remember to fuse any demons with healing skill at all because I keep thinking, oh, my other party members are healers, so I never really focused on Ringo for that. But I was like, okay, so Melody can't do it. I guess it'll be Saizo because I can't. I because that, so this is the other issue I had with fusing demons. To be honest, you had this system where you have these mystiques that you can give them like special buffs on elements and skills and all this stuff. And you go to the fusion, and I wish there was a way to look at your party's skills and all that then and there. I like you would have to leave the fusion area to then look at the menu, to look at your party, look at the mistakes they have, then look at their demons, then go back in the fusion and then do what you wanted to do. And it's like I kind of wish I could look at my mistakes while I was fusing, so I know what party member has what, and I can kind of plan on that instead of having to go off what I remember because I never remembered. Oh, who's gonna be my healer? Who do I want to be my healer? Because I always default in my mind. Oh, it's gonna be Melody and Arrow. But by the end of the game, it was Arrow and Saizo. Then it just became Saizo because Arrow, I could not, transfer. He had this one healing skill that was great. It was can't remember the name, but it would give you your whole party healing and would cure all ailments or debuffs or whatever. It would cure everything. And I was like, this is a great skill. I want this to be in his demons. Period, and it never stuck. And it just was it might have been a demon specific skill, but that's with every skill almost. So I couldn't really get enough skills I want for my party, which is kind of a bummer. It's not the end of the world. Like it didn't ruin anything, but it kind of made me just get more frustrated when I wanted to fuse. Like I would go there and be like, all right, what can I fuse? And then they'd be like, I can't fuse anything. Okay, gotta go. And I didn't like that because I was mostly saving my money up just for the comps. I wanted to upgrade my comps way more, and that I was doing a pretty good job kind of like getting on top of, but I just didn't want to go through like, okay, let's go through the compendium and buy worthless demons and see what they could fuse into. Like it just seemed kind of frustrating, and it kind of made me like SMT5's fusion system way more, where you could just go through your compendium and just fuse. You could do that with the special fusions and the search function in Soul Hackers 2 to be completely fair. But I kind of wish you could just get the view just innately in the normal fusion section, because the search I never really did, because I kept thinking it's the same search feature that was in the Persona games, which I don't really like. I get it, like it lists all the demons and you can see what they fuse, and I get that, but I never really liked it. I don't know why. It's like every time I saw it, I was like, no. And I just defaulted to like the standard fusion, because I kind of like looking at that more than going through the search. The search, honestly, like especially in this game, it kind of feels like a desperate move. Like I need to make this demon. Okay, what can I do to get this demon? And it will just show you. And I kind of didn't like that, because it kind of robs the mystery and the fun of like discovering what's in the game. Uh, I mean, the only difference would be like the Black Frost. Like I knew Black Frost was in this game. I mean, it's a frost. I mean, the day Atlas does not put Frost in a fucking game, I swear no one's gonna buy that game. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. If there's an Atlas game, before anyone says, "Well, Theo, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, technically it does have Frost in it. They have a storefront that was based on Jack Frost. Now, of course, that game also is boring. So why are we gonna talk about that? So there's that. So yeah, the fusions were kind of a letdown in this game. I like the setting of it. It's just I found myself finding more times than not going there and then be like, oh, can't do anything. All right, and that kind of pissed me off a little bit. So it's not my favorite game to sit there and fuse with any as much as other games. I was kind of like this let down by that. But that I will also say it might just be a me thing. I can't say that as like, oh, it's gonna affect everyone, but just for me, it's like it's weird to me, because I was playing SMT5, SMT3, all these games, and I do the fusions, and it's like I feel like I was able to get like really good demons just by doing that. And Soul Hackers 2, it always felt like I was doing something wrong when I was there. It's like, why am I getting these like demons that are not really worth anything? Like, and this is a little embarrassing, but I couldn't figure out how to get Mitsama fusion. I don't know why I can never find it. I don't think I ever even saw it, because I know in SMT3 you could like I think you could find them naturally through random encounters as well, but you could also go to a shop to get them. I don't know how they do it in Soul Hackers 2, and I kind of feel like I should have looked it up at some point, but I never did. So whatever, I didn't do it. It is what it is. But yeah, the fusions were kind of a letdown in this game. It's not terrible, but I was kind of let down for what I loved about fusing in this game, and it just wasn't there. Uh, the boss fights were I did like the boss fights a lot in this game. I do like the idea that you're going against other summoners, so you have a human enemy and then you have like other demons that they're gonna be summoning. So I do like that a lot. Oddly enough, as far as though I'm looking at the enemy, it just made me think of SMT more, more than the player party, because it's like, yeah, you're just four dudes with demons, okay. And then I was like, all right, I have a party of demons. What's up? It's like, dude, what? But I do like that a lot. It kind of adds a whole other layer to it. Uh, Especially like, so when you go through the Soul Matrix, you do boss fights in that, and the boss fights in the Soul Matrix, once you beat the boss enemy, all the enemies go away with it, pretty much, unless there's special exceptions to that rule, etc. Meanwhile, when you do like a normal boss fight, even if you take out the summoner, you have to take out the demons that are there. And I do kind of like that a lot more, because it kind of makes it more nerve wracking. Because you might think, hey, I got this beat. It's like, wait, hold up, you gotta beat these other guys first. I do like the boss fight. I do love the boss fights for that. I do like that it became more like than just, hey, I'm just gonna be wailing on this enemy over and over. Like, it doesn't feel like a sponge as much as Digital Devil Saga does in that boss fight I'm in currently. Uh, so it does a good job making you feel like you're doing a little bit more than just dumping stuff on an enemy, and I do like that a lot more. And it was interesting. honestly, the gameplay of Soul Hackers 2, like the more I was thinking about it and the more I was playing it, I kind of wish that Alice experiments more with SMT and does more spin-offs like this, because I think it can lead to very interesting ideas and products out of it. Like, I heard that this game flopped in the first week or so, and I don't know if Alice really expected it to flop or not, or how they're looking at these sales, because maybe it's going as they wanted. Because the thing is, I was talking to this with Retro the other day, saying like, yeah, I'm bummed that it flopped. I really like this game, and I kind of want Alice to do more stuff like this and more stuff that's more experimental with it. And he was saying like, well, yeah, like, but it's not gonna, whatever. He brings up like something about like the Switch, obviously, because he loves it, right? Um, but I was saying, I think even if it went on every platform, I think it would have flopped anyway, because I do think that at this point, Modern Atlas has only really put out SMT and Persona, so that's all people talk about. So I think regardless of what game it is, it would never sell as much as SMT5 or Persona, because those are very established properties. Everyone knows what Persona is, everyone knows SMT. But like when you have a game like Soul Hackers, like who really talks about that, right? Like only like very like only the fans would. But I just don't think like they could do Digital Devil Saga 3. I don't think that's gonna sell as much as like anything else that Alex has put out. But it's a bummer that if this just shoots any hope of anything experimental from Alice, that is kind of a bummer, because I think there is stuff in Soul Hackers 2 that if Alice just pushed more on and just elaborated and ran with it, it would have been a better game. That's not to say that this is a bad game. I don't think Soul Hackers 2, like, that's the other thing that was kind of odd with Soul Hackers 2. When this game was announced, everyone that I've seen on Twitter was like, can't wait for this game. Oh my god, this game looks so fucking sick. Can't fucking wait. Oh man, amazing. The game comes out. Well, I'm not gonna get it. It doesn't look like it's worth $60. And I kind of didn't understand the switch in attitude. Like, you knew it was gonna be 60 anyway, because it's one, an Atlas game, two, a new game. Like, why wouldn't it be 60? Like, if they're acting as if it was 70, it's like, no, it's $60. The one thing that people bring up is the DLC, and I agree. The day one DLC that Alice has been doing lately is ridiculous. I think SMT5 is way worse in that regard. At least with Soul Hackers 2, the DLC is the notable ones. I think the Ringo Frost, that one is exclusive to like the digital deluxe. Like, I don't have that because I got the standard, because I got the physical edition. So I'm automatically disqualified from the Ringo Frost, because that's only in like the high digital deluxe edition, while I don't have it, even though I got the DLC. Because I wanted that Rhino outfit, and I wanted the music, and I wanted all these other perks, but whatever. Um the the DLC for Soul Hackers 2, the reason why I don't think it's as bad as SMT5 is that the story DLC that they give you is at least kind of interesting, and it is difficult. It is a challenging DLC, and I would argue that the final boss of the DLC is way harder than the final boss in the main game. Honestly, I tried both those boss fights, and I could tell you the final boss was a cakewalk compared to the final boss of the DLC. I still did not beat it yet as of this recording, but it's still a solid DLC. But I get why people don't like that. I just think SMT5 was worse with it, because they had Demi Fiend DLC that they knew people were gonna get, because it was coming right off of SMT3. Demi Fiend is like a fan favorite, so it being $10, like the most expensive one, and it's like, yeah, you're gonna buy this because you love SMT3. Like, it kind of felt scummy, because they knew they would get away with it, and it is a good DLC, and that's the only good one that they put out for SMT5. The others was like grinding. Like, if you want to grind for XP, get this DLC and you'll get, it's like $1, which isn't bad price wise, but it's the principle. But then they had these other story mini DLCs that I ended up getting as well because I was just fucking cucking out at this point, and they all fucking sucked. Not sucked, but there might have been like one I enjoyed. The rest really just felt like pre-order bonuses. Like I would compare this to the story DLC that you would get in Arkham Knight. That's not the two major ones that they did. The two major ones was like the one with Batgirl in it and the Night of Infamy or whatever. The last one that they did for Arkham Knight. The ones like for Red Hood, Harley Quinn, like those that you would get for pre-ordering the game. That was the quality of DLC campaigns you got for SMT5, which pissed me off because these were like $5 a piece and they were not worth it. Like it's like yeah, it's $5 or whatever. So it's like what were you expecting for $5? But it's like the story should have been at least better. You got one that was about Athena and she was like, yeah, Hercules sucks or whatever the fuck, and then it's whatever. But but yeah, even with that, Soul Hackers 2 I still think didn't deserve the criticism it got because I do think it's an overall solid game that is worth playing. I couldn't really understand why people were just being so like I don't know, I'm gonna wait until it's on sale. It's not worth it, man. I saw one review that just said that the game was boring, and I kind of didn't know what game they were playing because, like, I played Cult of the Lamb during when this game came out. I played Cult of the Lamb a lot, and then I beat it. After I beat Cult of the Lamb, I just sunk time into Soul Hackers 2. Like, that was all I was playing since then because I really wanted to play it. Like, I'm still thinking about going back to it now. So I don't understand how people could say it's a boring game. I mean, I get it's like preference and stuff. That's not really what I'm like addressing. It's just like there is stuff in the game that I can understand why people wouldn't like it, but I really loved a lot of what was there, and I loved continuing the story and all that. Like, I just loved everything. Like, the combat was kind of fun. That grew on me. I love the characters, all this stuff, and the gameplay kind of complemented that. The music is so good. That was another thing I just have to throw out there. The boss themes just fucking outstanding. The music that played at every scene that got heated, like the one oh no, I'll say that for the story segment, but there's like a few parts that get very intense where the music just gets like fucking heavy and it's like oh shit, like I was sitting there like okay, like this is late at night, and this is like I was gonna do something, then save, then go to bed. I get to this part, and it's just like shit's going on. Like, oh shit! Like it got me like really pumped. The music is just so good. Like I think the soundtrack to Soul Hackers 2 is far more competent and solid than SMT5. And I don't know. I don't know if the musician left at this point. I don't know if the musician that was with Atlas when they did the SMT3 music, the Persona music, all that. I know he left, but I don't know if SMT5 was the last project he did or if that was the new one. I don't know. But SMT5's music was just like it was good, but there was a lot of like stinkers in there in the mix. That was just like, oh, okay. But Soul Hackers 2 all had bangers. Like there might have been like I want to say like two two bummers of tracks, but overall the soundtrack to Soul Hackers 2 is really good. Uh I love the music in the final stage. The final boss music. I have to talk about the music. They must have played Nier Automata because it was like not the first phase of the final boss, but the last phase. That phase's music, it was literally fucking Nier Automata music. And I was like, what the fuck is this doing here? So I think the music is very good and very solid. That being said, let's get on with the story of Soul Hackers 2. There will be spoilers, so I'll put the timestamp below to when you can skip ahead to the final thoughts of Soul Hackers 2. So let's get on with it. Here we go. I was really surprised how much I ended up liking the story for Soul Hackers 2 because coming from SMT5, I was very nervous that Soul Hackers 2 was gonna taper off by the end or lose focus or something. Like I just was really disappointed with SMT5 story and how it just kind of fell apart by the end. And I was kind of expecting that with this. However, I ended up getting a very solid, cohesive story. It does feel like Soul Hackers 2 has a good focus on what it wanted to do from start to finish, and it got there pretty well. The only issue I had with the story is that it brings up some ideas and information that they don't really elaborate on. And there is some stuff that I kind of wish the game went more into instead of spending time on other things. Uh, in the last video, Stormlit Aqua posted about how he didn't really like Ash in the sense that it felt like an anime or like an anime trope kind of thing. And I get that, but to me it feels more of like just a typical trope you'd see in like a gangster movie or any other movie about a guy who killed a lot of people, then he wants to live a normal life, and then like his girlfriend betrays him, then he's brought back into the dirty life that he tried to leave from, then he, and at the end he gets out of it again or whatever. It was just that story with Saizo, and I think that is the weakest part of the game out of the party members. I think Saizo is the weakest link, and I would argue if you take him out of the game, you don't really miss anything. There's nothing lost. The only thing Saizo really offers to the game and to the story is just being a mediator for Arrow and Melody. Like he plays off the party very well, and I think that's the only thing that he really offers. Other than that, it's like why even have him in the story? Because there's really nothing interesting. His story doesn't really tie into the main conflict at all. The only thing that it ties into is that Ash worked for Iron Mask for a while. That's pretty much it, and that's not really a compelling uh story in my opinion, because it's just, yeah, Iron Mask hired her, so yeah, okay. Like it just became like a romantic drama with them, and I guess they wanted that to be the romantic side of the story, but it's just the weakest link out of it. Arrow I thought was interesting mostly because of his conflict with Melody. I think Arrow and Melody kind of stole the show. I was very sold at the time before Slicer joined the party. I was just sold off of the idea that your party is made up of Ringo, who's naive, confident, uh, very energetic character who's very likable. She's a very likable character. Ringo is a great character. We'll gush about her later. Uh, but I was told on that with that character being paired with Arrow and Melody, who hate each other and have agreed to work alongside Ringo to stop the end of the world or stop Iron Mask or whatever. And that I was sold. That is a great like cast right there. And I think that's where they should have just ended it. They should have taken the Digital Devil Saga approach. Have a 3-party game. Come on. Because I was very like excited to see where it was gonna go. Like, are they gonna grow by the end of the game? Are they gonna become friends? Are they gonna like leave their respected groups and just be their own person? Like that'd be really cool. Like I was like really like excited to see this happen because it feels different than anything else. I was really sold on the premise that was there with these characters. The game does stuff that doesn't necessarily ruin them. I don't think by the ending and how the ending played out, I was disappointed with it. There was really nothing disappointing about the ending. I'll say that right now. Um, but I was just like, man, I wish it played out differently a little bit, just a little bit. But I'll get into that when I get to the end. But yeah, I was sold on that alone, and Saizo was just like, oh, okay, well, I guess he's there. He's the comedic relief, dude. So I was fine with Saizo. It's just he feels kind of forced compared to the other party members. They bring up with Melody. This was a thing I had to look around because I kind of it didn't connect with me when I was doing her Soul Matrix. There's a Soul Matrix flashback where you see Melody as a child. I did not know that was Melody for some reason. I was like, "Who's that kid?" And then you see Iron Mask like, save her. And I was like, "Okay." So Iron Mask saved a kid. Okay, cool. So where's Melody in all this? Why did they show us this? And then like, it hit me later. Oh yeah, that was Millie as a kid, and I was like, what? That and it started to feel really really fucking awkward after that because it introduces this ethical issue there as well, which in a way parallels the conflict with Raven and the orphanage, where the orphanage is pretty much a way that they groomed orphans into becoming devil summoners. So both like Yatagarasu and the Phantom Society both had very shady ways of getting people to join their groups, and it is a good, interesting way to show that. But they don't go far with it. They don't really, you know, call Millie out on that. They don't say like, Millie, you were like a kid back then. Like, you don't think that like, Iron Mask like, did this. And I think like maybe Millie said something about it. Like, I think she said like, yeah, I knew he could have done something about that, but like I didn't care. He saved me from that place. And I kinda get that, but I kinda wish it was. I wish it was a line of dialogue that just kind of wrote it like wiped it away. I kind of wish it was a little bit more than that they did with it. Like they could have done something with that would be more like impactful than what it ended up being, because I think it was only resolved in the Soul Matrix. I want to say I don't think the party member ever like called her out on that or anything. It was something that was handled in the Soul Matrix, and Millie just kind of said, "Well, whatever. It is what it is, right?" So that was whatever. Like it's as I said, they have these ideas and they don't go far with them. It's like they just say something and it's like, all right, won't elaborate. It's like okay, uh, Arrow. I like this with the like again with the Arrow. It kind of parallels with Millie a little bit, and I like how they butt heads, and I like how Arrow is always the kind of guy that wants to do right by everyone. Like he wants to go on his own line of justice to the point where he was fighting his own childhood friend who became a terrorist pretty much, and he tried to stop him and all this kind of stuff. But I was mostly drawn into the whole thing with Raven and Arrow more than what was the other his childhood friend's name? Can't remember. I want to say it's Usagi or something, but uh they bring that up and it's good. That's a good conflict to have at the beginning of the game, but when they bring up Raven, I think that's far more interesting of a conflict. And with Raven, I think Raven is a very interesting part of the game because obviously the big reveal of Iron Mask being Raven is a very good twist. I did like that twist when it was going on because it the whole beginning of the game, I was very confused. Why was Melody going against Iron Mask? Like you go through the Soul Matrix, and she's going on and on how much she loves Iron Mask. Like, oh, Iron Mask is so fucking cool. Yeah, he's fucking rad, man. I owe my life. My life is his. And I was like, okay, so why do you want to kill him? Like I was really confused why she had like such a bloodlust to kill him. And I was like, maybe it's something interesting that we're gonna find out by the end. Maybe it's gonna be something cool. And then you find out that the real Iron Mask was dead the whole time, and the Iron Mask you've been talking to is a fake one. And at that point, I was like, that's actually like, it is a very obvious twist to a degree. Like if you go back, I'm sure on a second playthrough, you're like, yeah, this is pretty clear. But I think it's one of those twists that's so obvious you don't think about it. And that's what I like about it, because they do a way better job hiding it compared to how Alice hid like Akechi and Adachi as villains. Uh and with Raven it does lead into Fig. Fig I do like as a character. The her plot twist, it's interesting in how I'm going to describe this, because hopefully it'll make sense to everyone. I knew she was gonna be the final boss the second I looked at the box art, the second I booted the game, and you see her and Ringo standing side by side. I knew she was gonna become the villain. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, yeah, because like she's a navigator character, like she's not a party member, so there is always a chance that the non-playable character is gonna betray you by the end, because her role could be easily replaced. Whatever. And part of me is like, yeah, I get that, but I feel like that is a twist that you'd only predict if you've played JRPGs or Alice games in the past. That so you would naturally think that. But on the surface level, I think they do a good job kind of not making you like suspect it. The reason why I kind of knew she was going to be the villain wasn't because of how she of the the role she had in the story or anything. It was really her design. Um, if you look how the game renders, I have an art card of her right here. They don't. I don't think the art really does, showcases what I'm going to talk about. But in the game, her little hair bang, like side bangs. What are these things called? Side tails? I don't know. Uh, are way more sharper in the game. And her dress that she has a lot of sharp shapes in it, like triangle stuff, that kind of shit. Uh, and usually that kind of iconography is always used to kind of hint at someone being villainous, and they kind of complement that with the rounder hairstyle, like the body of her hair is also round, so it's like she has good in her, but she might be a little bit villainous as well. So they do a good job kind of hiding that in her design very well. I think the design of it is subtle enough that it's not painfully obvious that yeah, she's evil. Look at her. It's more like in a subtle way that's like if you're not really paying attention or looking, you're not gonna notice it. But if you kind of understand character design, you're gonna like pick up on that. And I do like that. I think that was something I liked early on. And it's the same thing with the color palette. Initially, I mean, they played off so easily. Like, yeah, she's just another like model of Ringo, obviously, because they're machines, and it would make sense that they're both kind of the same model. So of course they're gonna share similar visuals with some alterations. So they play off of that so much that you don't think about it. And then when you get to the end, you're like, yeah, if you really look at the character design, like they kind of sneak it in there. Uh, but I feel they did a decent job building her up to being the villain. I watched this video that was going on about the story of Soul Hackers 2, and I couldn't help but disagree with their take on Fig's betrayal. And I'm gonna call it the video. The channel is Nam uh Nam Corporal. I don't know the full name, but it's like Nam. The video title's like Soul Hackers 2 discussion or whatever, and they bring up that they think it's like they thought that the whole twist was weak because it was like Fig snapped because she loved Raven, and that happened, but they didn't really develop the relationship, man. And I was just like, that's not what happened. Like, I could see why anyone would think that, sure, but I don't think that's why Fig snapped or broke from what happened with Raven. It was more so that because when you go to the orphanage for the first few times, uh you start to notice that Fig really got along with the kids there, and she loved how Raven was taking care of the kids. And from what she knew from Raven, she was like, yeah, he used to fight, and now he's taking care of these kids. That's like really like cool of him. Like he wanted to stop the conflict, and then he wanted to like watch these kids. That's a really noble thing for him to do. Like all that. Like she really sympathized with that a lot, and she liked that. Uh, so when she found out like, oh, he's gonna destroy the world and all this stuff, like she wanted to talk him out of it because she was mostly thinking about those kids and and how fruitless the conflict is and all of that. Like she was just mad about that because she later found out that the orphanage was a front for Yatagarasu to groom these kids into devil summoners. And when they confronted Raven about that, Raven pretty much said like he surrendered to the system because there's nothing he could really do. He can't fight back. He can't stop doing it because then Yatagarasu would get him out of there, and they might replace him with someone who might be worse for these kids. So this is like the lesser of the two evils here. So feeling that conflict of like this fruitless helplessness that Raven was feeling, and Raven wanting to destroy the world, like, and experiencing all that, once the party stopped him from doing what he was gonna do, and him rejecting coming back to life from Fig reaching out to him, she just snapped. Not because Raven died. It was just the cycle of conflict that would never end and would be ongoing and continuing. That's what broke her. It wasn't anything to do with Raven. Raven was just the catalyst for it all. And then they were saying like, well, didn't Fig think that this is not what like Raven wanted? But it's like this was what Raven was doing, and Fig, like, yeah, sure, you can make that argument towards Fig, but at the same time, like Fig wasn't thinking really all the way. Just she wasn't doing it for Raven. She was doing it because of what happened to him in that kind of way, and this frustration she had about what was going on, and it kind of gets accentuated with the fact by when you get to the final dungeon you fight through endless waves of people who are all there to try to stop you in all this conflict that's going on. There's pretty much a war going on in the municipal tower, pretty much, uh, and that all accentuates what's going on. That goes along with why Fig is going against, this whole sense of conflict, and she wants to soul hack the world into not having conflict. So all this stuff, when you get there, it all kind of supports why Fig was doing what she was doing. So I can't really agree with that video saying that, oh well, she was doing that because she was in love with him. It's like I don't think that was the takeaway there. Um, so yeah, I do agree that I with myself, okay, that Fig Fig's whole like arc felt earned. I could agree to a point of like you could say that maybe it's rushed or it's rushed a little bit. I could see that, but I'm gonna compare this to Persona through the Answer because that in that video I straight up I do agree that the whole conflict in that game is kind of forced and rushed through, and it's like yeah they just want this to happen. I understand why that conflict happened, and I like that, but it was rushed and forced. This did not feel forced, and I could see it being rushed, but it does at least feel like it was kind of earned to have that twist in the story. Like I can't imagine anything else. The only thing I do feel jaded with or mixed on, and I'm curious to see if you guys are gonna agree with this sentiment. You probably will. I have a feeling a lot of people are gonna agree with this. Did Atlas blow their load with killing off Iron Mask as early as they did? Because I kind of feel like they could have done something more with that character, the fake Iron Mask. Like they killed off Raven, and part of me wonders if they could have done something more with that instead of just killing him off. Like maybe, what it could have been is that Fig forces uh Raven to be soul hacked, like forces it, and he comes out a monster or something. Like they could have done something like that, but instead it's like they don't do that, and the main villain is Fig, and the final boss fight is a good fight. It is a little bit easier to be honest, but uh, I do like that boss fight a lot for what it is. But I was saying that thinking to myself like is Fig worth being the final boss? Like I could see her being like the first phase. I was like, yeah, this is only gonna be like an easy phase, and there's gonna be something else. And I'm like, okay, maybe the second phase, like she summons the Great One, and we have to kill that thing. Maybe it's gonna be that or something. And it kind of is that, and it kind of isn't, because it's not really clear what she did in the second phase. Like she just says like, oh, I'm removing like all these limiters or whatever the fuck, and she becomes like this big like orb monster, and it is kind of teased in the dialogue when that phase starts. Like they are like, is this like they think it's the Great One, but they don't really say it. They just like, is this? Never mind, we're gonna save you, Fig. It's like, why not just say this is the Great One? Like that's what I don't understand. Like that. I guess it's meant to be ambiguous, or maybe it's like Fig is tapping into the Great One's power to do this. But whatever. So I don't know how I feel about her being like the final boss, but it was still worth the conflict to get there, because if there's one thing I'm a sucker for is literally the conflict that happened after Raven's death. That whole thing with Fig, like I'm just like, yeah, let's see where this goes. I love when shit goes on with a party and there's like this great drama there that's like that has all these stakes involved. So I love that. So you get to Fig, you finally reach it through all these waves of enemies. And I have to say, I have to say, Fig brings up all these ideas and stuff that's very interesting, but it gets kind of hand waved. So like she announces to the party, to everyone, like, hey, I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna use the covenants to soul hack the whole human race and erase conflict from them. Like, get and take that out of them. I'm gonna hack them and do that. And they're like, wait, what? And there's the yeah, like when Ringo was soul hacking you guys, she could have rearranged your soul and you might have been sliced and diced, dude. And who knows? She could have made you be your servants or whatever. And I was like, this is a good like ethical conflict that she just brings up right at the end. And then like it just gets like, nah, who cares? We don't care. It's like we get Ringo saying, no, I didn't. And then you have Arrow saying, we don't care. And then Melody just up and says like, if you're trying to divide us, you're wasting your time. You're wasting our time. Like I kind of like Melody's reaction to it way more than Arrow's and Ringo's to a point. Like Ringo's is there to tell you that like, yeah, she didn't do it, so okay, everything's great. But it's like that is something that would have been interesting. And I kind of wonder, like, it also ties into the weirdness I have with the runtime of the game. Because it really feels like this is the shortest SMT game I've ever played. I think this is shorter than Persona. And I'm like, why is this game so short? This could have been a little bit longer. And that kind of dialogue, when they bring up the soul hack stuff, it's like, yeah, this is like really big concepts that they're just kind of like, who cares? Like I really was interested to see like what was gonna come of that. Like she tells them like you guys could have been brainwashed to like follow Ringo. What do you think of that? And they're just like, yeah, who cares? It's like you're she could have like told you like, yeah, eat shit. Like she could have programmed that into like fucking Saizo, and Saizo would be like, oh well, I eat shit now. Like come on, you don't care? Come on, it's bullshit. So like that's one of the issues I had with the story is that they bring up these ideas that are all interesting things, but they don't go anywhere with them. Uh, but the one thing I do like that Fig brings up is the whole game. Throughout the game and the dialogue you get through the bar, they talk about stagnation, how humanity is so advanced. They have all these advanced buildings and technologies, and yet as a culture and a species, they have stagnated. They have not done anything to change how they live. Nothing has changed. They live the same. They die the same. Nothing changes here. It's all fucking stagnant. And they keep feeding that theme like over and over, and it kind of gets a payoff with the boss fight with Fig, where Fig just straight up calls it out. She's like, "You guys are so readily accepting of how the world is, and I'm here actually doing something about it. You talk about you want to end the conflict and stop all this, but you accept what's going on. So like I'm doing something about it. What are you doing?" And I do like that like Fig just outright calls out that contradiction. And then when they try to bring it back to her, like, yeah, well, what about you? You're doing the same shit. And she's like, yeah, I know a contradiction. I know this is a contradiction. I'm creating conflict to get what I want. But after this, there will be no conflict. So at the end of the day, I'm getting the change I wanted. It's kind of like this saying, you break a few eggs to make an omelet. So I do like that, like that whole debate with that contradiction is outright addressed. So they at least address, and Fig like is like, yeah, I know I'm a hypocrite, but it's gonna get what I want by the end. So I do like that at least is not like something that they just don't address at all, or it's something that they just say some dumb one-liner to ignore it. It's at least kind of feels like it has some weight to it. Uh, could they have done more with the stagnation theme? Yeah, I think so, but I think it's fine for what it is. As I said, I think overall the story is solid and cohesive with what it's trying to convey. I just think that there's this stuff that they could have done more with. They also bring up with the Covenants. I think the Covenants, as an idea, is solid, but at some point it kind of felt a little convoluted. A little bit. Not like super convoluted, but it just kind of feels like I started thinking less about them as like abilities or like something special than just keys. Like I still don't quite follow how she would accomplish her soul hacking with the Covenants, but whatever. It's a MacGuffin. Whatever, it is what it is. Uh, the cutscene with when you're in that basement area and not Ringo, Fig like gives the Zoma like um the fake covenant, and it's like a virus. I don't know what that is. That just feels like to me that they wrote themselves in a corner. It's like, well, they technically can't get out of this. What can we do? They need to leave, and they can't lose a covenant. So how are they gonna like leave without losing a covenant? Okay, well, I guess we'll just say that Fig made a virus and made it look like a covenant. Because how did it go to the Zoma but not to Iron Mask? I guess it's because like they of their research of demons through the fusion guy, I guess. I do like that the fusion guy has a story significance. I will say that's something that is kind of rare in SMT in some ways. Like Persona does a better job integrating the Velvet Room into the main story, but they're usually just kind of like observers. I think Persona 5 they integrated that way more into the story, but that's a discussion for another day. Uh, but yeah, the covenants I'm whatever with. It's like it is what it is. At some point I think at one point in the story I lost track of who had what covenant, and I was like, wait, what? Like I was kind of so when they were kind of revealing that Iron Mask wasn't Iron Mask, like it was Raven. I was just trying to like piece together like what they were talking about. Like, okay, well, Melody would know that this person doesn't have the covenant. So then if they saw that, then she would know. But they have the blue one. It's like, what? Like it was kind of I was kind of confused about that a little bit, but I understood by the end. Uh, so yeah, I think overall the whole story is solid. So after you defeat the boss, I got the true ending, which is you get the Moon Knight keys, and you get those by disagreeing with all the shadows of the dead. You see all these people like they talk about their life, whatever, and that. Uh, so I got that, and then when Fig is lying there, you either let her disappear like a heartless bastard, or you reach out to her like a normal person would. Uh, I reached out to her because obviously I knew that was the right thing to do. I did make sure it would get me the true ending though. I did read the guide to make sure. But that's how you do it. You have to reach out to her, obviously. So I did reach out to her, and it's like, and I do love that whole section of that cutscene. Like it got really depressing a little bit because it was just like holy shit. Like because before then, even leading up to the final area, they kind of addressed Ringo and like Ringo, you really didn't know Fig at all. Like you went on the assumption that you did because you were made from Ion, and you assumed that since you wanted the same thing that you knew what you wanted and all this stuff, but you never really knew her, and she kind of took that for granted. And I like that realization, and it wasn't like, and there was no denial of like, no, I didn't, whatever. She was like, yeah, you're right. Like I was a shitty friend, and that I wish we got more of from fucking Atlas because I feel like I love that there's a fallible main character in a fucking Soul Hackers game because Persona it's like the main character is perfect and everyone else is the fallible human. Like Joker's gonna be the one to remind everyone that they why they're fighting Yabba Dabba Doo and all that shit. But this time it was like no, the party members had to be there for the main character, which is really really rare, and I would have loved to see more of that in these fucking games. Like I really liked how everything came together with Ringo, and that led to a very emotional scene when she was trying to soul hack Fig and bring her back. Like she was already apprehensive from soul hacking her because she was just like afraid. It oh my god, it's gonna be fucking nerdy. It made me think of Ava. Think about it. Yeah, fucking Shinji or whatever, or Gendo in that matter. Gendo, if you're in the rebuilds era, where he was afraid to get in touch with his son. He was afraid of that interaction. He was like, I can't fucking talk to my kid. I'm fucking terrified of fucking Shinji. I gotta leave. He got a pilot the Avon. I gotta get the fuck out. It was like that, where she was just kind of hesitant to do it. Then she did it because she knew she wanted to be there, and she was just so afraid to leave without Fig with her. So that whole discussion was such a heartfelt section of the story that it felt worth getting there. Uh, so yeah, ultimately, I really liked that ending of this of that game. I thought it was a very strong ending. It didn't really feel. I was kind of hoping, like, I was kind of expecting like a corny anime ending, and it kind of was, and it kind of wasn't, because at least it felt more somber, and that kind of reflects in the boss theme, the boss music too. It felt like a more somber conflict and all that. It felt right. So you she pulls her out, and Ion decides after that that they're gonna come to the main light. They're gonna get more involved with humanity, uh, and with that they finally say goodbye to the party members. And to this recording, I like that. I like where it ended. I like that they're all going their own separate ways. But it's just one of those endings where you just kind of wish they stayed together. Like I said earlier, I really would have loved to see all these characters be friends and stay together, like, and onwards. Like I don't want to see Arrow and Melody kill each other. I don't want to see them fighting because one's Yatagarasu and one's Phantom Society. I don't want to see them fight. Come on. So I was like always hoping at the end, like maybe they're gonna leave these groups and they're just gonna be like, we're gonna be our own people or whatever. But it ends with them just sticking to their guns. Like, Arrow's gonna go back to Yatagarasu. Melody's gonna go back to Fam Society, because she wants to know more about the Executors, which I kind of feel the Executor was kind of another wasted opportunity, because I was really expecting the Executor was gonna show up at the end and do some, like, nonsense to, like, be the final boss, but he never shows up again. Because when you beat him, he's like, well, there's no point in you being tired and me being tired, so it is what it is later. And it's like, okay, so he's gonna show up again, obviously, and then he never shows up again. So I was like, oh, like what was the point? I guess it's as I said before, is to highlight the the big conflict that happened over the Covenants to support her whole cause, etc. Uh, but whatever. So that's why Melody's going back to Fan Society to get more information on that. Saizo goes back to be with Ash to make a family and be a freelancer and take small jobs instead of these big high risk jobs. Uh, I do like that ending. It's not a bad ending. It's just you just like the cast so much you don't want to see them apart. It's like watching the ending of Samurai Champloo when you see Fu, Mugen, and Jane go their own separate ways. Like, you watch all those episodes and then they just go their own way, and it's like, fuck. So yeah, ultimately I loved all of that. I loved the conclusion of the ring with Ringo and Fig. I think we're gonna go with a Ringo gush segment. Okay, guys, we're gonna gush about Ringo now. She is one of my favorite characters. I heard in the sub of it, the Japanese voice actress kind of made her sound more robotic, like just like announce like emphasize certain words in the enunciations or whatever. Like, she would enunciate certain things like a robot would. Meanwhile, in the English dub, she seemed more confident. But I think I would argue, honestly, both are decent ways to experience this game. I don't think there's a definitive way, in my opinion. I know Storm. I know what you're typing. I get it. I get it. But I think it was more refreshing having the English cast for Ringo. It was more refreshing how she portrayed it, because it's like, yeah, do I really want another Igus? Like, I get it, but I think how Ringo is in the English dub is far more interesting and refreshing as a character, because he was a character that was, because I felt that since these are like highly advanced robots developed by Ion, that they would at least grasp speech and sarcasm and all these kind of things. It's more of like the nuance that they're curious about, and that's kind of what Ringo relays to her party members in the bar segments, where she's like, yeah, I'm just very interested in like humans, like, what do they do and all this kind of stuff. Like, I'm kind of simplifying what she's saying, but she does say a lot of like stuff that is more interesting in like how humans work and all this stuff, and she's eager to learn. And she also says, like, all this stuff I'm doing, I've learned immediately from like my interactions with you guys, and that I think is interesting. And that's really what I loved about Ringo. I think that's what makes Ringo a very interesting character in the game. It really complements the story as far as the final boss is concerned with Fig, the party members, the enemies. Like I really thought Ringo really added a lot to this game, and I kind of hope that the sales of Soul Hackers 2 being a flop does not convince Alice to never do a speaking protagonist again, because to a degree, as I said in the last video, I was very surprised that Soul Hackers 2 does not lean as heavily into anime shit as Persona does in comparison. And not that there's anything wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with leaning to anime stuff here and there, but it doesn't do it in a way that's just like, oh, the bathhouse scene. Okay. Like, it actually feels like it's trying to do its own thing. So, I do hope that Alice does not look away from what they did. I think the reason, I would argue, like, I never really understood why, like, the sudden, like, blasé attitude people had for Soul Hackers 2 when it came out. I don't really get where that turn came from, in my opinion, but I do think that the one major issue with Soul Hackers 2 is that it just has a lot of ideas that are not fully fleshed out. Like it goes enough to make it a serviceable game that's good and in my opinion worth $60, but it could have easily gone farther with it, especially from a company that made other games in the past. Like they could have done something more with it. So I do feel like the only reason what was holding it back was some of the ideas that don't go far enough, both narratively and gameplay wise. But it also competed with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which is like a big game supposedly. But the story was solid. I loved everything about the story. I really can't. There wasn't a part of the story that was just like, whatever. Even with the Saizo stuff, I was just like, well, whatever. It was like I still stand by what I said, but it wasn't like I wasn't like putting the controller down and like leaving the room to get a drink or anything. But it's still a solid story, solid game. So my final thoughts on Soul Hackers 2 is that I do think it's a great game. If you have not checked out Soul Hackers 2, I would recommend it, especially for those who either have not gotten into an RPG before. If this is your first RPG, this is the best one to start with. If you are just getting your feet wet in SMT stuff, this is another good game to get your feet wet in. More so than Persona, because I said this before, if Soul Hackers 2 was my first entry into JRPGs, I probably would like RPGs way more than I do now, which is not really saying much, but I would have been more of a fan, because I really think that Soul Hackers 2 offers a lot there that is actually fundamentally interesting. So yeah, I highly recommend it. If I were to give it a bun score, I would give Soul Hackers 2 8 buns out of 10 carrots. It's a great game. It's fun. I think it's worth the 60 that's asking, in my opinion. If you're really unsure, sure, wait for a price drop. But if you get physical, you get art cards, you get fucking Ringo, dude. Melody shouts out. So there you go. Great game. Check it out. Thanks for watching this game club. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm throwing out there. Hope to see you guys in the next one when I discuss something else in these little mini game club videos. This one will ironically not be mini because I beat a game, so I have to discuss the whole thing. But the next one will probably be on the shorter side, depending on what game I decide to do for this video series. Anyways, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.